This is a special edition of One on One. It's 3-on-3. Greg Scher, Jocelyn Voss, James Kleiman from Housing Wire. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful.
Amazing. Amazing. We've got to talk about CCP. We're going to start off by identifying what it is because far too many people in mortgage still have no idea. Jocelyn, take it away. Lay it out there for us.
So what CCP states, clear cooperation policy, is that when a real estate agent gets a listing agreement signed, that they have to, once they start marketing the home, that could be talking to a friend about it, that could be sending an email blast out. Within 24 hours, they need to input the home onto the MLS so that everyone has access to that listing.
Why does it matter? And what's going on right now that puts it in a possible state of peril?
James, I'll let you jump in on that one.
So it matters because you have brokerages out there, Compass notably, that is trying to create effectively an independent business with pocket listings. And this rule is only a couple years old. It's what, 4 or 5 years old? And it was designed to prevent large brokerages from taking listings that never reach the MLS. And there have been concerns from consumer groups for a long time that realtors maybe have too much power over information and listings, and they wanted to nip that in the bud. But now Compass has figured out a way to effectively create a private club of generally high-end listings in desirable towns that are probably going to sell in a couple days anyway. And they're basically making the argument that if a seller wants to market the way they want to market, who are we to stop them? And we are giving them the tools to list it privately within the brokerage, which is permitted under CCP's provisions.
That's the big digger there.
Yes. Now, someone more cynical might say this is Compass's attempt at just double-siding listings that they previously maybe would have only had one deal side on, right? So maybe they sell the listing, but they didn't have the buyer's agent, which is an additional couple percentage. So that's the complaint. And if you take it even further, okay, let's say Compass does this and they have half of the listings in Compass's network never hit the MLS for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever it ends up being, and they sell internally, the consumer certainly doesn't benefit in kind of totality. And what if other brokerages do this as well? Anywhere has a ton of listings. EXP has a ton of listings. Real brokerage, you go up and down the line, and then suddenly you don't really have a lot of value in this series of MLS networks, 600 that we have in the country.
I've heard the argument, Jocelyn, this is why we need a universal MLS. This idea that they're fragmented and all over the place, different rules depending on the MLS. What's your take on that?
I've always believed in that as well. There should be one national MLS across the board. I mean, getting everyone to do one thing is not an easy thing to do. So
why isn't it like that? Is it a money thing?
It's always
power?
A thing.
It's always a money thing.
It's always power.
Right? Yeah, and that's why you're wearing green today too, probably. Yeah, you knew.
I think Compass is doing a good job talking about what they have to offer and inviting brokers and inviting agents and consumers to their site to see some of these coming soon listings before they hit the market.
So safe to say Compass is all about CCP going away, and almost everybody else is against it. So Jocelyn, give us a window into why the smaller brokerages stand to get really crushed if CCP goes away.
Well, you got to think about it. It's all about your network, right? The larger mass of agents that you have using this. And let me add, this is a technology that Compass has. So it's not just agents talking about it or sharing it at, sharing their off-market listings at a sales meeting and putting it in an Excel file or a Facebook group. We're talking, this is technology where it automatically will flow to the buyer that's connected to that Compass agent. So there's an automated technology process that makes it super, super easy to use, which means it's only been taking off. And essentially the larger Compass grows by using this as their marketing play to retain and recruit agents. The other brokerages, how are they going to win? Their network is itty bitty. If you have 100 agents at your office, how can you compete with Compass with 20,000?
So basically the MLS is standing up the smaller shops and helping them survive? I mean,
Yeah, I think you're going to hear
is, well, I mean, capitalism. I mean, if Compass knows how to work the system, use AI, have better technology, know how to build a bigger network, I mean, all the power to them. I mean, that's how I feel. But a lot of people don't feel that way, right?
Yeah, it's certainly ruffled a lot of feathers in the broker space, and you have to think about the larger economic climate as well. We're not 5 years ago where it was a relatively normalized. Well, COVID obviously not a normal time, but that was a boom time. And if you're a real estate agent who wasn't selling properties, I mean, geez, what are you even doing? But 5 years ago is a totally different story than today when you see a huge number of price drops. In a lot of markets, you're seeing 40-50% of the listings that need to take a price cut. You're seeing a lot of stale listings, particularly inventory in parts of the South, particularly parts of the Sun Belt. And so if you're a brokerage, the enemy of your business model is stale listings that never sell and agents who get frustrated and get wooed by other opportunities or other models. There's downlining. There's a lot of other things that you're competing against as a small independent real estate brokerage. And if you're also now looking at Compass's largesse, just the scale of this potential private listing network, and now we're starting to see a lot of independent MLSs, NAR affiliated MLSs that are starting to bend the knee and say, okay, Robert, if you want to have marketing done your way, we'll agree to it. And these are MLSs that have traditionally fought such business tactics, and they're starting to say, we're just not going to fight it any longer. And so I think you could potentially see this as the dinosaur looking at the comet. If you're a small independent real estate brokerage and you just don't have the resources to fight a Compass in a really down market.
All right. So the question now, James, you've got your reporter hat on, so I don't have to ask you to put it on. It's already there. Based on what you know at this hour, what are your thoughts about, is this gonna happen? How does it shake out? I mean, do you feel like if you had to take an educated guess based on what you know, do you want to take a crack at if this is going to happen or not?
I don't know. I was here in DC last week, and I ran into one of NAR's attorneys who's been working on this, and she said no comment and ran away as quickly as she could. I don't blame her, but I do feel like there are winds of change right now, and pretty much everyone that I've spoken to who are running real estate brokerages, who are pretty high up in the discussions, believe that there's going to be some change. Whether that means the rule entirely is discarded, or if it's a tweak, and so it's not 24 hours in which you need to market, but maybe 48 hours or 72 hours, or some significant alteration to the rule that doesn't wholesale kill it, that still allows Compass and others, if they wanted to try to recreate some of what Compass is doing. And there's always been imitation in real estate. It's not like Compass will be the only one who does it. And even Robert Refkin noted in his social media post that those who are criticizing it now, just you wait, in less than a year, they're going to be doing the same thing that I'm doing. So I do think that this is going to change no matter what.
A huge point, James. I mean, I know large Anywhere announced last week to their conglomerates that they've built something so that all the Anywhere brands can share across. I think if CCP changes a little bit where it's not internal to your brokerage that you can share, maybe it's internal to your network to allow some flexibility across what those networks look like. I mean, it's not going to help the MLSs or the portals, but it really will help all those other brokerages that are not as large in size or that are franchise models that now can go across. Because remember, franchise models KWs can't share across either. That's right. Not internal to your brokerage. So that's where I think maybe if that change were to come in, then people at Compass could share with people at KW. And then we have, newer networks forming, similar to how New York City does business.
Let's talk about Zillow for a minute, because Jocelyn, as I look at Zillow, they're an aggregator of consumer data. And that's what they do. That's their main play. What happens to them if there's no more clear cooperation policy and they no longer have this vast database of listings?
Well, I mean, they're pretty vocally for CCP right now. I mean, they're pushing out how much consumers have lost due to pocket listing sales. And so they will be in trouble because ultimately they have, in my opinion, as a real estate agent, happy to say it, they've pissed a lot of real estate agents off. They essentially took the leads on my listing or all our agents' listings and sold them to our competitor, right? They made it a profit center, and that really pissed a lot of people off. So what are they going to do if they tried to create their own pocket listing network? I don't know what real estate agent would say, yeah, of course I'm going to originate my listing and input this information on Zillow, my favorite place in the world.
James, how closely is Housing Wire following this? Like, if people want to keep their ear to the ground on this, how do they do it?
I think this is potentially the biggest story of 2025. And so we have two dedicated real estate reporters who are covering it almost every day. And there are developments almost every day. And we do expect that NAR is going to issue a final ruling on this in the next week or two. We don't know exactly when, but that is the expectation. And just to kind of get back to the Zillow side of it, they're claiming that consumers have lost $1 billion in sale proceeds from just pocket listings existing. I think their analysis is it's not how I would have done it. And they're also basing it off this estimate, which is kind of notoriously
Wrong.
False. False.
I didn't say
false. I said it. I said it, just so you know.
But so yeah, the methodology is questionable. I do think that there are reasons that a Zillow would be concerned. At the end of the day, though, I still think you're going to be fighting against the forces of the consumer habit. And that's always been the problem in real estate and mortgage. People are ingrained to do it a certain way. And I think a lot of sellers who have sold a house the traditional way are going to want to sell it the traditional way. And it's going to be more difficult to convince them that you should have a private listing network and not go the route of Zillow, because that's where every journey starts. Not every journey, I'm exaggerating here, but the vast majority of consumer home search journeys start on Zillow. And if people realize that it's not on Zillow, I think it's going to spur big change. So it's really going to be the question of, are consumers willing to listen to the real estate agent who may or may not have their best interests at heart? Is it going to be a soft push? Is it going to be a hard push? And that'll determine a lot of really what goes forward, in my view.
Well, I want to ask a natural question, I think, and that is, what boat is Redfin in, right? Because they're also cite 50 million visitors or so is the number that we've heard
Per month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
per month as that deal with Rocket went down. If CCP were to go away, any opinion on how that would impact them? And did Rocket end up with a bag, of not all roses if that happens?
It's a great question. I don't think Rocket is going to end up with a bag of kitty litter or anything like that. I think in the long run, this is probably going to look like a really smart deal, but it won't pay off overnight. And also because consumer habits don't change overnight. And ultimately, they're going to be looking for people who are going to be transacting a couple years down the road, not tomorrow.
But James, imagine if Redfin says, oh, well, we're a brokerage. Why don't
So they are.
hold our private
Redfin is a brokerage. Well, the issue is they don't have listings, right? It's
Yes.
they have some listings, but Redfin's power traditionally has been more on the buy side and finding consumers who want to go maybe a non-traditional route and save some money. I don't know that works when we still have a larger market in which sellers still have the advantage, particularly in a lot of markets that are not dominated by home builders or entry-level listings. So I think Redfin's economics might work in certain markets, especially combined with Rocket and just their ability to generate mortgage revenue, but probably not in a market like this. So I don't think that this would be a good thing for them.
This is really an important time for loan officers. So I'll just speak from the lender side here. I was speaking to a top 1%, literally one of the top 10 originators in the world before we jumped on here. And I asked this originator, hey, what's your opinion on CCP and what's going on? And the answer was, well, what's CCP? I have no idea. So now that you know, there's a really great, caring, nurturing touch point available to you. Every single originator out there needs to reach out to every single agent in your database on a one-on-one basis and ask them how they're doing, what they think about CCP. Are they scared? Are they concerned? Are they in favor? Are they against? And how can you support their business either way? It is a layup. So hopefully this gives you the context to understand what's going on right now. As we have more of these talks, this is our second like fireside chat. I have like names running through my head for this if we wanted this to be like a continuing thing. One of them will never work. It's wake your ass up. I like that, where we just do this every morning at like 9, or like coffee talk.
Not
Oh, there's like a billion coffee talks out there.
We have my baby spitting in the background. I think that would be good TV. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, like anything goes, or wake up with I don't
like
know.
Anything goes.
Anything goes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Right. What are we missing here? What do we want to? What loose ends do we want to tie up before we wrap up, Jocelyn?
I think it's important too, from the lender side, to be knowledgeable about CCP, because some real estate agents that they work with might have no idea that this is going on. I mean, I think we're going to see, if CCP goes away, I think we're going to see a major shift of agents going over to Compass. And I think it's important for all the other brokerages to get set up with the technology to leverage the sharing of listings in a private network within their own brokerage, or whatever might even possibly change across brokerages or agents, and be able to stand up and say, we have this too, don't worry. Because what Compass has done really well is they've marketed not only to their agents about why this way of marketing a home is the best way, but they've even convinced their agents to now believe that, which great job, Robert Refkin. I'll give you, that you did a great job on that. But it's also how the agents are pushing this out to the consumer, that this is the best way. So the consumer awareness, this round of CCP existing, leveraging the technology in it, is huge. I don't have a consumer who doesn't ask me, well, do you have off-market listings for me? Or can you, sell my home off market? This isn't just luxury business anymore. This is how people are thinking about the business altogether. It is very wildly different, and it's really reshaping how real estate will be, in my opinion.
And I think this is why it's so transformative and potentially the story of 2025, because previously it was only luxury focused. It was someone had a celebrity client and they didn't want their home on the MLS. And so they used whisper networks. And now that paradigm has shifted, and we still have a low inventory environment. And so, in a lot of communities, I still think, like my hometown in Wyckoff, New Jersey, there are like 5 homes for sale. Like, when I was a kid, there would probably be 150 homes for sale. And so that doesn't change overnight. And if you figure that Compass probably has at least a top 3 agent in every single market, that gives them another big boost. And now, as Jocelyn mentioned, if I were to buy a home, I want to see what's off market too. And so it's sort of also chipping away at the idea that the only way to market is to bring it to every single eyeball, that you want people who are even in Thailand at the White Lotus to be able to look at your home, right? And maybe what you really want to do, depending on your marketing strategy, is you want to have it local. You want to have kind of, a more curated, different experience only for people who are there in that MLS or even within your brokerage. So I think this is potentially the biggest change in marketing, and we're only just starting to see it get rolled out to the consumer. And I think the next year is going to be really critical.
Yeah, when I think about buying a home, I think about signs in yards and consumers knowing the area they want to be in and driving around, seeing a sign. Like, are we making too big of a deal about this, making the purchase of a home like a global thing? I mean, we're talking about the idea that someone from so far away needs this tool to be able to see all these listings. If I'm going to buy a home, I know where I'm going to buy a home. I know the general area, and I'm going to drive around and I'm going to look for signs. So CCP or not, Jocelyn, does that change?
Well, this is, talk about agent value, right? Would you work with an agent? I mean, if you, as a consumer, would you work with an agent if they said, hey, I have off-market listings for you? Would you work with that agent or the agent who has none?
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
And
obvious
so
answer.
this
Yeah.
is the agent taking control back ever since consumers had access to all the listings now because MLSs syndicate to all the portal sites. This is agents being able to take some control back of having information and hoarding information that now the consumer needs to work with an agent to have access to.
Yeah. James, the one thing we didn't talk about is, and this will be the last thing we discuss, is can you frame the dominoes for us? Because there may be some people out there saying, well, why now? Why is this coming up? Where's the pressure coming from?
I think a lot of this really started to kick off following the Sitzer Burnett verdict, which was in October of 2023. And although that rule is different, that the rule, the buyer broker rule, which by the way, has had some impact, but that impact is largely focused on the agents who didn't have a strong bargaining position in the first place. And so these are the same agents who are going to be disproportionately affected because they don't have listings. They don't have, as Jocelyn correctly noted, the same level of control. And so I think we're going to start to see that will be the large acceleration in the market dynamics on the agent side, much more so than just, okay, now my buyer may have to pay my own compensation and I have to convince them and I have to get them to sign this whole form before I do any tours. That is small potatoes compared to what this could be, because fundamentally you don't have a whole lot of value now if you don't have access to listings like you did before. So I think it just means that you have consolidation and you have a couple big players that have the ability to scale and really control certain listings. And again, keep in mind that we're talking about a couple select markets where we even have an inventory situation that works in the favor of the consumer. In the vast majority of markets in the US, we're still down 20, 40%, depending on the market, in listing inventory. And those are generally markets that Compass is well represented. And if it's not, then anywhere is well represented. And if it's not, then, there are, so I think if you're a little guy, so to speak, in this business, this is probably the big threat here. And that always trickles down, right? It's less money for the independent brokerages. It's more just fewer players at the top.
Yeah, welcome to change. Mortgage has been going through it for a decade and a half now. What
Yep.
about the DOJ? Because they said that they were misquoted. Like, is the DOJ really looking at this from an anti-competitive scope or
Greg, if I knew
not?
more about how the Trump administration, the DOJ, was really working and really planning, I'd be making double what I make, and I wouldn't be at Housing Wire.
Well, then, but that's been out there, right? Like the DOJ said that that their opinion was mischaracterized. Aren't they pulling back a little bit from what people were saying, that they were looking at this, they were scrutinizing this, they felt like it was anti-competitive? Last I read, they were saying we didn't say that.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, and the DOJ, depending on the president, will have different priorities, and they've scrutinized real estate and the practices at NAR and certain brokerages differently, depending on the administration. I think most people expect the Trump administration to be a little bit friendlier toward some of the business interests. We just don't know right now how it's going to shake out, but I don't expect that they're going to, affect any litigation specific to the CCP policy.
Final word, Jocelyn. You get the final word. Bring this home.
Final thought of mine is, what happens when CCP goes away, right? I mean, our industry is going to look like a hot mess, but I really think this is so important now for technology to step in and for these brokerages that have been sitting on the sidelines, watching Compass do what they do over the years to step up, get connected with technology that allows you to compete so you don't lose your agents, and so that your agents can at least say they have the same access to a different market. Because imagine, a bunch of agents or brokerages coming together to fight Compass. Then where's Compass's value? Maybe it will be less then.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was great. This was round 2, our second fireside chat. We need better graphics, because you're like color purple today. James is in a hotel, he's always in a hotel, and I've got all these lights behind me. We need fire, This has been amazing. Thank you both. We'll do this again soon. Again, go to Housing Wire to get the latest on this and so many other things happening in housing, real estate, and mortgage. Have a great day, everyone. So long. Bye-bye.